Do you feel that?
My lord?
Change.
Eldon Ackridge, my lord. Emissary to the great King Dalestein of Fang.
The choice is yours.
Hi, my name is Rafael Zubizarreta, and I'm the creator of the Windward Spirits role-playing game, as well as the Windward Spirits film series. So, first and foremost, I've always been a fantasy, big into fantasy, fantasy fan, ever since I was a little kid. Going back to, I'm a kid of the 80s and 90s, so I grew up with Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, Kroll the Conqueror, Legend, Lord of the Rings, all that stuff. I was just captivated by it at a very young age. So fast forward to when I was about 10 or 11 years old, my parents and I went to a store and I saw a board game and it was called Hero Quest. And I remember looking at the back of the box and I loved how there was like little action figures and there was like a dungeon, and I begged my parents to get it for me and they finally got it for me for Christmas. So the concept of the board game was pretty cool because it's like 4 characters to choose from. It's a barbarian, a wizard, elf, and a dwarf, and they're basically going around in a dungeon, but there has to be a game master, somebody who sets the game up for them. So the game master basically dictates where the enemies are, what's in each room as they go in, stuff like that. And I always seem to be the game master. That was my favorite thing. And when I introduced it to my friends, they really liked the game. And even with them, I was the game master. And that's kind of what planted the seed for creating a game to where I had scenarios and things like that of the fantasy realm. So fast forward again to like middle school, I remember being at lunch and I saw 3 guys sitting on a bench, and they were playing what I can only assume was Dungeons and Dragons. I had never played, but knowing how it's played now, I can pretty much bet that's what they were playing. So the guy in the middle was basically setting up a scenario for these 2 guys, and they were like, he goes, okay, so you go down the stairs, and the guy on the right goes, all right, what do I see in front of me? He says, you see a dungeon door. And the guy goes, okay, I pull out my silver key, I put it in the door, and I turn. The guy in the middle's like, okay, the door creaks open. You see Roderick sitting right there in the room. And both these guys went nuts. They were just like, oh, snap, it's Roderick. Oh, my God. Like, they were so excited. And I remember just kind of being like a creeper off to the side, just listening to all this. And I was like fascinated by it. And I was like, I want that with my friends. I want to be able to create something with my friends that we can play, because I know they like fantasy and I know that we can do something. So the Hero Quest game, seeing that, and then my friends were big into RPG games. So like I said, I'm a kid of the 90s, so they played like Final Fantasy III, Shining Force, Chrono Trigger, Seventh Saga, and I used to watch them play these games. I never actually played them, but I would sit there and watch them and like listen to the lingo and ask questions. Little did my friends know that I was actually like making notes, and I'd be like, so what's up with this creature, and what's up with this character, and why does this character do this and that? And they would answer me, but I could tell they would be like, why are you asking me, like, you want to play or what? So so I started thinking to myself, how am I gonna like hit them with this, like that I want to play a game, like a scenario game with them. So we're sitting at my friend's house one night, summer of '94, I think, and we're bored. It's almost midnight, and we're all on the verge of going to sleep. And I was like, I'm gonna hit him with it. So I was like, you guys want to play Quest, going back to Hero Quest? And they were just like, what the hell's that? And I was like, okay, so I make a scenario, you make a character, and we just go off of each other. And they were just like, yeah, sounds cool. So we started, they all made a character. We started playing. Before you knew it, it was like 4 hours later. Sun was coming up. We had so much fun playing it. And that's kind of how it started. Like that night was the very first night that we had ever played this game. So again, I didn't have any intention of making it like a world per se. It was just you make a character, I'm the game master, let's just go off of each other. But as they kept playing, as the months went on, I was like, man, these like their characters are actually starting to develop stories and you know, stuff like that. So it became pretty apparent to me that I needed to organize this and make a map and make creatures and characters and storylines and everything. So I did. And the first map was incredibly simple. It was just a rectangle piece of paper with a few islands with some dots that represented towns and some mountains and forests. And it was cool for me to see them sit around this map and be like, hey, so where are we gonna go? Like, you know, let's go here. I've always wanted to go to this town, you know, whatever. So seeing their excitement level made me want to give them the best possible experience with the game. So, so yeah, like the game just kept going on and on for years, and I just kept building on it. Every couple months, I would improve the map. I'd make more characters, I'd make more creatures, and the storylines expanded. Before I knew it, I had a whole world. Like there were storylines all over the place that were connecting with other characters, and we played well in, like we're playing now. Like we're in 2022 and we're still playing, but we play on a walkie-talkie app now because we're all busy with our everyday lives. We got jobs and stuff like that, so we do the turns whenever we're free, rather than sit in front of each other and bounce stuff off each other. But that's how it all started. That's how the game started, and that's how it kind of grew into what it is now.
My name is Amora, and I've been playing Windward Spirits for nearly 3 decades. Those are actually some of my fondest moments growing up. We would play a game of basketball or football and go hang out in Rafael's garage and continue a file we've been playing for a couple of weeks. Or you can crack open the books and select some new characters and see what we can do. But Rafael always did a good job keeping like 3 to 6 of us highly engaged and entertained with some of his stories and just the descriptions of what he would do. And whenever we would start a new file, like for me, it was really based on what our goals or objectives were. Like, what are we trying to do as a group? And then what I could try to do with my individual character. And, Rafi always did a good job of managing everyone's play style. I don't know how to really describe it. Like, for, the example I can give is like I had a character that was a halfling. And I remember my goal was to try to get 100 bare hand kills with this character. And I was so pumped when I did. But, and then the overall goal for most of us when we try to play together was to try to beat the game. And, I think we've only really beaten that, at least for me, like maybe twice. It's hard to do, and it takes a lot of consistency. But always, and Rafi and I have talked about this before, I feel like everyone's like play style for Windward Spirits matches their real life. Because, in real life, I'm very goal driven. Like I want to set a goal and reach it. And every time I start a new file, that's exactly what I try to do. Like write down my goals, what we're gonna do, how am I gonna try to reach these? And that's just been the joy and the pleasure. I've been playing it for a very long time, and now with Voxer we can play it, through different time zones and different days, and maybe spaced out quite a bit, but it's easy to kind of take a break and then jump right back into it like you never missed a beat. And that's been my experience with Windward Spirits.
So as far as making some of these creatures, I got a lot of inspiration again from some of the RPG games that I would see. Like I would see like animal people, and I just thought that was the coolest concept, particularly with a game called Shining Force. And a lot of the characters on there were like fox people, lizard people, and I just always wanted to include that race of people in this world, and just have them be like this kind of a race of people that a lot don't understand. But within this world, as many of the people who have played this game will tell you, a lot of like some of the most interesting characters turn out to be like the halfling creatures and stuff like that. And then for the Claw Phantom, I just wanted something mysterious, menacing, something that that was kind of different that didn't talk, that was just completely animalistic and wanted to just wreck whatever it comes across. And there's so many other characters and creatures within the game that I made that I've just kind of picked up ideas along the way, like I said, through RPGs and other fantasy films and monster manuals. I used to look at monster manuals from Dungeons and Dragons for hours, just trying to get inspiration on like what my next creature would be. Sometimes I would literally sit there with a piece of paper and a pencil, and I would just draw an eye, and I would just stare at the eye, and I'm like, okay. And the eye would dictate how the rest of the creature was going to look. It's really hard to explain, but that's kind of how it was with creating some of these things. As far as the artwork for Windward is concerned, I always was getting ideas from the players, believe it or not. Like, a lot of the times the players helped shape the world into what it is now. Like, if it wasn't for some of the players, some of this stuff wouldn't be going on in the world. Some of the storylines wouldn't be going on in the world without some of the actions of the players and what they say, what they do. So when we would play, they would do something in the game. They would find a character, and I would describe the character to them, and afterwards they would be like, man, that dude sounded tight, man. Like, I like that character and this and that. So I would log that in my brain. I'd be like, yeah, cool. And then I'd go home that night, and I would sit there till 2 in the morning drawing that character, because I wanted them to see what the character looked like. And if I described some random creature that's attacking them in the game, I didn't have a drawing of it. So afterwards, after they would fight the creature, I would go home that night and I would draw that creature up that attacked them. And new creatures and new characters were always coming up in my head as we were playing, like sometimes on the fly. And yeah, and it's just kind of crazy how it worked in my brain sometimes. I still can't explain it when people ask me, like, how do you do this? How do you come up with this scenario, this scenario? Sometimes a scenario won't come to me until I'm actually playing. Like, if I sit there and try to plan out what the scenario is going to be and what they're going to see and what they're going to experience, it doesn't work. Like, if I'm sitting in front of you and and I tell you, okay, you see a path going into a mountain. The path is winding. It's a blue sky, sunny day. There's birds flying. It's probably like 75 degrees out. You see this huge mountain range right here. And then you tell me what you do. Sometimes I don't even know what's going to happen until you start going down that path. And like, once you start going down that path, you see some rocks kind of fall down the way here, and be like, okay. And usually the player's like, all right, I pull out my weapon. I'm looking up, and as he's telling me that, or she's telling me that, that's already given me an idea for the next turn. And we just go back and forth off of each other. And sometimes it's the coolest thing ever, like, just to experience that live gameplay with each other. And like I said, sometimes it's a happy accident that something will come about on the map or in the books or whatever. So, yeah.
What brings you to Naj, Westerner?
I'm looking for a man. Heartwool. Wallen Heartwool.
The next sound I hear will either be useful words coming out of your mouth, or your scalp being scraped from your head.
Keep a hand on your sword. There's worse than halflings hiding in the sand. I'll come to Naj.
So as far as my relationship with Warland, it was, as a general rule for myself as an actor, I always like to try to find some sort of parallel with whatever character I'm playing. No matter how different they may be from me, I try to find some sort of common ground that I can share with this character. And with Warland, it's about, he's a guy who his whole life sort of felt underappreciated, overlooked. He knew that he had skills. He knew that he knows that he can be something great, but for whatever reason, he just always seems to get the short end of the stick with a lot of things. And so he goes and hides away with this little group of mercenaries, and it's in Windward Spirits Blood Ties Part 2. He has a conversation with one of his comrades, Nira. It's a very brief conversation, but it's really important, where she basically tells him, are you gonna, like, you need to man up. Are you gonna just stay here in the desert and let others dictate how you're gonna go about your life and let others decide your fate? Or are you gonna do something about it? Are you actually gonna get out there and make a name for yourself? And, you know, he's brought this horrible situation where he has to decide now, and he's kind of at a crossroads with himself. And as for myself, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, when I decided to make all this into films, I was at a crossroads, and I was frustrated with where I was in my career. My auditions were few and far between. The few auditions that I would get, I felt like I was being overlooked. You know, I felt like I wasn't being utilized. And I came to a crossroads where I was like, okay, kind of like Warland, I was like, I need to do something. Like, am I gonna let others tell me I'm not good enough to be in their project? Am I gonna let others decide if I'm talented enough, if I can contribute to this project? Or am I gonna do something myself and stop, like, you know, feeling sorry for myself, so to speak? So that's when I decided, I'm like, okay, I know I have something to offer, and I'm gonna show it now. And, you know, and I think that's where Warland is in his story, where he's like, okay, all this stuff just happened. What am I gonna do? Like, these people are coming after me now. Am I just gonna sit here and let them come after me, or, you know, go for it? So that's kind of where I see some similarities with myself and Warland. Obviously the difficulties would be, like, you know, he comes from a family that sort of mistreated him, or, you know, not mistreated him, but like just really elevated his brother over him, where he kind of felt like the black sheep. Obviously that was, you know, that's something that I had to find in myself, because I have a very loving family, thank God. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Hey, how's it going? My name is David Rannis, and I am very fortunately a player of Windward Spirits. I was introduced to the game in, I believe, early September 2021. A good friend of mine from work kind of put me onto it. I had been talking his ear off for the past couple days about Dungeons and Dragons. I had only just recently kind of gotten into it, and he was like, "Oh, you seem like you're really into role playing. You know, maybe I could introduce you to my friend, and he could run this by you, and you could see how you feel about it." And he kind of started giving me a little intro and introduced me to Rafael. From the get-go, Raph was very, very nice, very helpful. The game, he described the game a little bit more to me, and I loved the idea, so he helped me make a character, and we spent about a week doing that. Very, fun experience, even just putting the character together, and we were able to kind of get going on the quest pretty quickly. And ever since then, it has been, one of the things I look forward to most in my day. I find myself frequently checking my phone, like, oh, have I heard from Raph? Have I heard from Raph? And it's been such an amazing experience. Like, from the get-go, Rafael's ability to go into detail and describe the situation that I'm in has been incredible. Makes me genuinely feel like I'm there, like I am in the world, and I'm not just playing a character. One of my very first combat encounters, we were traveling from my home city to the first city on my stop of my journey, and we were attacked by a group of crazy, dangerous, deadly beasts. And I remember just being able to sit back and listen to Raph describe it, and it really genuinely felt like I was there. And every move that I wanted my character to be making, he was able to perfectly describe it and basically give life to it. And his description was exactly what I was envisioning the entire time, and it was really epic, and it got me into the game. Like, I was already very interested, but that, like, it really hooked me after that.
So what's next for the series? It's pretty much wide open, to be honest with you. Right now, as of 2022, it's streaming on Amazon Prime Video, which I'm very happy for. I mean, anybody can go on there and watch it, all three. But we're very open to anything, whether it be a feature film, another series of shorts, a web series, a comic book, a video game. Like, I've always been very open to anything involved with Windward going forward. You know, obviously this is an indie project, so the budgeting was not quite, you know, it wasn't a big budget, but we were able to create 3 films that are now on Amazon on an extremely low budget. So just imagine what we can do with more money if somebody were to invest with us and help it go forward. You know, sky's the limit. Filming all 3 was surreal at times. It was, you know, a dream come true, because this is, you know, like talking about the origins of where it came from, and then being able to actually put it into flesh and blood characters. Like, while I was on set many times on all 3 films, I would sit there and just sort of look around at everything and be like, damn, like, I'm here, like, we're doing this, you know, after all this time. I've had friends and family for years tell me, bro, you should do something with this. You should, you know, look at all these drawings you have, man. You got a map, you got this, you know, you should do something with it. And of course, at the time, yeah, maybe one day, you know, maybe, but seeing how it all came together and the amazing team that I was able to surround myself with, all of them believed in the project, from the first guy I told about making the film, Cyrus Imami, who directed the first and the second one, co-directed the first and second one, and Alex Perez, his directing partner, my friend Nate Upshaw, he produced the second one and directed the third one. And they all brought, you know, a series of talent behind the scenes, crew, a lot of really talented crew to help make these films come to life. And then I went into my bag of tricks for actors. I know a lot of actors that I was able to bring on board, and it was a dream come true to see it all come to fruition.
Hi, my name is Kevin Miller. I've been knowing Rafael Zubizarreta going on 30 years. We grew up on the same street together. How did I get introduced to Windward Spirits? Well, prior to Windward Spirits, Rafael had a game called Enemy Grounds. All of our friends, we would get together at his house and we would role play. And, you know, you could see even back then that he had this amazing ability to tell stories and to bring these visions in his mind to life via drawings. And now he's doing it on the big screen. And I know that if he just keeps it up, he's going to really blow up. So y'all enjoy him while you can.
As far as any challenges or difficulties that we had going into these films, there were just minor hiccups here and there, but nothing that, you know, most productions don't experience. We did have to cut out a few scenes in part 2 in particular because of money. Like, we wanted to do this really elaborate fight scene, but it would just got too expensive. You need you know, there's all kinds of little things you have to pay for with an elaborate fight. But I would say the biggest challenge that we had was in part 3, on Deadly Grounds. My director, Nate, he rented this big equipment truck, and it had all of our stuff in it, like, you know, tents, cameras, sound equipment. And we filmed for 3 consecutive days. The first 2 days were in the desert. Third day was gonna be up in the mountain at Lake Arrowhead at my friend Pete's property. And we packed up on the second day to go to the mountain. It was an all-night shoot. It was 4 or 5 in the morning. I'm driving home with my friend Josh, and my director Nate calls me and he goes, hey, I think we're gonna have to shut down production. And I'm like, you wanna be more specific? And he goes, so we left. My truck, the equipment truck needed gas. I thought it needed diesel, so I filled it up with diesel when it actually needs regular. So I was like, oh, I see. He goes, so yeah, you know, I filled it up. We drove about a mile. It started making a weird noise and we had to pull over. I'm like, okay, so where are you? And he told me where he was at, middle of nowhere. I said, okay, we'll figure out what to do, but we're not shutting down production. So we started calling Pete, and Pete, He's a lifesaver, like on so many levels. He's the real MVP of all this. He drives out there with a siphon pump, pumps out all the diesel fuel of the truck, and he brought a can of regular gas and filled it up right there. Thankfully, the truck started fine and got up the mountain, and we were able to do our thing. But that was a big scare, and glad we got through it. But that was probably the biggest one. The gap from when I first made this game all the way to where it came on Amazon Prime was, man, it was probably like 24 years or so. Because, like I said, it was just a game within a small group of like a cult following of people. Like, I didn't share it with a lot of people at all. And even when we would play in the garage, we would be sitting there playing, me and like 3 of my friends, and then one of my other, like somebody else who we would know, but we didn't know, like we weren't that cool with, would like pull up and be like, damn it, like, come on, man. We'd hide everything. Like, we'd hide the maps, we'd hide the books, and then like they'd pull up, they'd be like, what are you guys doing? Oh, you know, we're just kicking it, you know, like we would hide it. Like, we didn't want to tell people about it. It was like our thing, you know, and we were big into sports, and it was like, you know, we were at that awkward age where it's like, oh man, people are gonna think we're nerds, you know, like we're playing football and like they see us playing this. But yeah, so we didn't share it with a lot of people at all. It wasn't until I got older and got into the acting field where I was like, man, I really could probably do something with this, with all the stories and storytelling that I have over the years. Like, but yeah, it was like 25 years almost. As far as if I would go back or if there was any regrets or anything that I would change, I would say, I mean, obviously it was something that's sort of out of my control, but I wish we had more money, because fantasy films are not cheap. You have all this, you have costumes, you have exotic locations, you have a big cast and crew. You have to make a storyline that actually catches people's attention. There's just a lot that goes into it. So having more money would definitely be what I would have loved to have had more of, or wish that, you know, if we can go back, because like I said, we had to cut out a couple of scenes in a couple of the films because of lack of money, that we needed more stuff than we were able to handle with our budget. So as far as the storylines, I mean, those storylines, I'm proud of them. You know, at the end of the day, people like it, they don't like it, they're indifferent about it, but it's a story that I always wanted to tell, and I'm glad we were able to tell it with live flesh and blood characters that I got to interact with in my own world as a character, which was pretty awesome in itself.
What is it?
There's trouble near.
What trouble?
Warland Hartwell is on his way here.
What is he? Nothing.
If you choose to get your hands dirty with us, the king will be very pleased. Seek your revenge, Warland. Go far and wide to restore your name, but do not think that I am to follow you for one more single step.
So be it.
I had final say on all the casting, because pretty much everybody you see in the film was somebody who I handpicked. Like, we held auditions only for, no, I take that back. The part 1 and 2, we held auditions, and there were actors who I knew personally, with the exception of blood ties, like the character of Hassan, which is played by Dylan Matthews, the character of Nira, which is played by Katie Bastero. I hope I didn't mutilate her name. And then the character of Belos from Time Winters. I held auditions for them for them. We held at an office space, and that was my first time actually auditioning somebody for something that I was doing, which was pretty crazy, because I'd always been on one side of it. I was always the one walking into a room nervous and not knowing like what they were looking for, and doing my lines and hoping they like me. And now I'm on the other side of the table looking at these people coming in, and it was a really crazy feeling, like seeing them come in, and I'm like, man, this is what I look like, huh? Like this is what it's all about. And it was also insane that all the people that I cast, I kind of knew after their first few lines if I was going to go with them or not. But yeah, you know, most of the actors you see on there are people that I knew personally, with the exception of the three that I mentioned, Time, Katie, and Dylan. But everyone else I would call up and be like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Can you just read a few lines for me and just see how it goes? And they read, and I liked it, and that was it. So none of this would have been possible without my support system, first and foremost. I mean, I had the game, sure. I had the ideas and all that stuff, but you know, it would not have been possible without the help of so many. When I first told my parents that I wanted to make a film like this, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, right away my mom was like, oh, the game that you guys used to play in the garage, yeah, I remember that. So, yeah, that I want to make it into a film. I'm done. I'm tired of just like of where I'm at right now with my career, and I want to do something about it. And they said, well, they didn't even flinch. They were like, what do you need from us? Can we help in any way? You know, and this and that. And they did. They helped out in the first one. They helped out tremendously in the second one. And then in the third one, I held an Indiegogo campaign and tried to raise money to get the funding for part 3, because it was going to be a much bigger production, bigger cast, bigger crew. It was actually like, I think triple the cast in part 3 and triple the crew in part 3. So I needed, you know, a significant amount of funding for what we were doing. And we were able to raise $20,000 on Indiegogo. And it was just like so many people to thank, man. Like, you know, my friends, family, coworkers, complete strangers, other artists, you know, everyone just pitching in for it. And it was just, and then, like I had mentioned before, Cyrus, Alex, Nate, those 3 directors that directed the 3 films, they all, you know, were key in helping come up with these stories and helping to write these stories. And, you know, they went above and beyond what I ever could have imagined that this would be. You know, whenever I would call them, and I would have an idea at like 1:30 in the morning about something, and be like, hey, that scene where, you know, I come out and talk to so-and-so, I think that should be changed to this and that. Like, we would just talk about it and hash it out, and no questions asked, and they would just do it, you know. And the support system was just so strong. And then, of course, my wife and my kids, you know, they love this stuff. Like, sometimes they'll just watch it. And of course, I hate watching myself. So I'm like, you guys enjoy that. You know, I'm gonna go over here, you know, and do whatever. But my little boy, he loves the character of Warland. You know, there's times where I'll see, like, after he watches a film, he'll have his little toy sword swinging it around and stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm Warland, you know. And it's like little moments like that, you know, they help me realize that even if this never reaches mainstream success, and even if people don't necessarily appreciate it, he has something forever that he can look at and put on at any time and see it and hopefully get inspired by it, you know.
So the first time I was introduced to Windward Spirits, it had to have been, I'd say, as early as I can remember. I must have been about 8, 9 years old myself. I would spend weekends in Killeen, Texas, with my aunt and uncle, Rafael's parents. Rafael being the closest in age with me, being about 4 or 5 years. I would spend about 2 weeks at a time during the summer, spending time up there with them, playing basketball, being introduced to his friends. who were up there. They had a really tight group of friends that would meet daily to play basketball, play adventure games, things of that nature, ride bikes, sleepovers. I'd be up there so often that his friends, eventually we grew to be my friends. They were met into people of our family, extended family, which we still know to this day. So, without getting too much into that, Windward Spirits, as far as I can remember, to know Windward Spirits, I was probably one of the few that remember the first one that came out. The first, I would say, fantasy role-playing adventure games that Rafael created, which was called Enemy Grounds. Enemy Grounds was a similar take on Windward Spirits. It was more, it was a little bit more basic, kind of generalized version of, predated version of Windward Spirits. General landscapes, general characters, but with Raphael's, detailed take on them. Raphael's always been one to take a concept and pretty much make it his own. He would take a general concept of, let's just say, a barbarian, and instead of being lazy and saying, yeah, you're going to choose the barbarian character, he would give that barbarian a certain type of name, look, detailed qualities that you would have to pretty much abide by while playing the game. So Rafael was always very detail-oriented when it came to that. He never wanted to be compared to any type of broad gaming platforms that were already there. So with that, Enemy Grounds was established. We played it. We enjoyed it. We played it so much. It was a game that you had to invoke ideas off of. You had to kind of put yourself in certain situations. I myself didn't get to play these games too often with the group of friends because I was only there maybe 2 weeks at a time. But I would kind of link in and join in those games, start new games, and kind of see. And sometimes I didn't feel like playing, so I would just kind of sit back and listen to already existing games that were being played. So played that for, I'd say, maybe a year or two. And this is from what I remember. I could be wrong. But eventually the friends wanted, and Rafael, you can tell they wanted more ideas to be, brought upon. Almost to a sense to where you would see Rafael not only, see the wheels turning in his head while playing, but there'd even be some times where Rafael would even get a notepad, and while playing the game, the existing games, any ideas or characters that may have come through, he'd kind of note them down, maybe expand on those. But you would see him, taking ideas and kind of putting something together that would have been, a lot bigger and something you can kind of, a broader universe within that established game already. And what we eventually got introduced to was something that to this day, as we all see, has been brought to life from Rafael's vision, and not only his, but he's just like he did with us, but in a different sense. In the world that he's in, he's brought others along and have made them, just as much part of the universe as he is and what he contributes.
So as far as aspiring artists who maybe have the same ideas that I have with whatever they like or whatever they want to create, I would say the best advice I can give is, and it sounds kind of cliche, but just believe that you can do it. Surround yourself with people who are going to help you achieve that goal. Like, I can't tell you, like, thinking about it now, just the people that I had around me at one point, it just wasn't vibing with what I was trying to do. And once I actually started meeting people who were going out there and making their own stuff, that's what really woke me up and opened up my eyes and be like, you know what, I have something that I've just been sitting on that I need to like show to everybody, you know? And there was an actor friend of mine who made his own series. He was really passionate about Westerns, cowboys and stuff like that. And he went out and made his own series, a web series for a Western series. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I was like mind blown when I saw the trailer for it. I was like, dude, you did all this, man. This is so cool. And it really opened up my eyes to be like, I have a fantasy series that I've just been sitting here doing nothing with, you know. I need to do something about that. And again, I started changing my mentality. Like I said, I know it sounds maybe cheesy or cliche, but if you change your mentality and believe that you can do it, you can. And like looking back on making these 3 films now, I think I'm like, damn, we actually did that. Like, you know, especially with where I was at one time where I was very uninspired, and seeing it now, I'm like, we were able to do it. So positive attitude, keep showing up, and surround yourself with people who are going to bring you up